Hello, everybody. Welcome to the pre-market prep session, deluxe pre-market prep session for May 22nd, 2023. As you can hear, still kind of battling some throat issues, but we're here and we're pushing through. I got some cough drops in, so excuse me. That's how we're rocking and rolling. Um, I think it's still tested negative for COVID. I don't strep, but definitely still have some type of flu issue that I'm battling through. We're pushing ahead, right? Still been trying to stay active, stay physical. If it keeps up, maybe I'll go to the doctor tomorrow, something like that, right? But I feel like if it's viral, it's one of those things that you just wait out. But at this point, waking up with the sore throat, a few days in a row, it's like, okay, might have to go get that checked out. But in the meantime, we're here. We're putting in the work. We're putting the time, putting in the effort. Hope everybody had a great weekend, restful and restorative weekend. Although I was battling through this sore throat and this sickness, still had a good weekend. All in all, got to spend some time with family. Got to get physical. Right, tore my shoes open yesterday playing pickleball. So been active. Still been getting after it. Thank you. I appreciate that, Carla. So like I said, might have to visit the doctor soon, maybe sometime today, sometime tomorrow if I don't start feeling better. But right now, just Mucinex, Halls, and keeping it pushing. But the voice is going to be what the voice is. So hopefully enjoy that early morning raspiness. And as always, right, we're here to dive into our news for this week as well as today. So with our deluxe pre-market prep session, we're going over everything in the week ahead as well as our Monday specific news. So we've got a few different headlines to cover as we head into another exciting week here in markets. Let me make sure this is the right newsletter. As always, we gather here with the same intention, the same end goal, and that's to get 1% better, right? It's Monday. We've got a whole new set of opportunities in front of us for us to take advantage of, right? For us to go after, for us to seize personally. You have to grasp those opportunities. You have to take advantage of those opportunities. So I'm excited to get after that, right? We got 5 new days, 5 new opportunities to get after it. So let's make sure that we come with our A game here on this fine Monday morning, ready to execute and maintain patience as well. So if you're watching live, right, whether you're watching live or via replay, make sure you comment that one, making sure that you're setting your intentions, right? Your intentions, your expectations, all that is so important heading into the week. You got to have that set up correctly, structured correctly, so that you don't catch yourself slipping, right? Because then if you start off on the wrong rhythm, it can carry you on the wrong rhythm throughout the week. So we set the tone. We determine, our own destiny. So let's make sure that we're taking the right steps to do that here this morning. And I hope everybody's doing well this morning. If you're doing well, drop a 3 in the chat, right? I feel like we drop the ones and it becomes monotonous. If you're doing well, drop a 3 in the chat. If you're alive, drop a 3 in the chat. If you are drawing breath, drop a 3 in the chat. If you still have people around that love you, drop a 3 in the chat, right? We have a lot to be grateful for on this fine Monday morning. So I want to make sure that we're all expressing that, right? That we're coming in with the things that we're grateful for, especially me, right? Because you can feel run down and all that. But the fact that I can still speak, even if it is a little raspy, right? The fact that I can still, be here and put forth the effort is a huge blessing. And I do not take that lightly at all because there's tons of people, right? Just like your grandma used to say, there's a lot of people that didn't wake up this morning. So I'm just blessed to even be here. In terms of our top news, talking about the week ahead, investors will be watching the U.S. debt ceiling showdown again as the threat of a government default of some sort becomes more real. Unless an extension or agreement is hammered out in Washington, analysts warn potential negative scenarios include Congress raising the debt ceiling just past the point the U.S. Treasury can make timely payments on its obligations, near-term debt service prioritization over the domestic payments, a short-term default on coupons, and a prolonged and damaging delay in debt service. UBS warned that the initial shock of moving past the X date for making payments on time would have non-linear effects that grow, particularly in payment prioritization scenario with falling government expenditures. Against that uncertain backdrop, several Federal Reserve Board members are on the speech circuit this upcoming week, and the minutes of the last FOMC meeting will be released. So we've got a few things here on the docket. We've got a number of members of the Fed speaking. So that's something that, again, a red flag needs to go up. Okay, we've got members of the Fed speaking. Need to make sure that I'm factoring that into, my landscape for what I'm expecting out of the week. And then, right, you also need to say, okay, we're getting the FOMC minutes. They're being released. So these minutes are from a meeting past, right? The past meeting. They're not from anything that happened this week. but it'll still give us further insight into kind of what the Fed is thinking. Excuse me. It'll give us further insight into what the Fed is thinking, right? And really kind of what their headspace is, and maybe give insight into if they plan to hike in the next meeting or not. Now, in terms of earnings, we've got a few household names. We got Zoom Video today. We've got Lowe's on Tuesday. We got BJ's Wholesale on Tuesday as well. AutoZone, Dick's Sporting Goods, Palo Alto Networks, Williams Sonoma. Let's see here. Wednesday, Bank of Montreal. We've got Kohl's, a popular meme stock. We've got Nvidia, right? Huge household name, pushing toward new all-time highs, right? Topping everyone's headlines everywhere. Nvidia this, Nvidia that. Please make sure at this point, if you're placing trades on Nvidia, they're short-term trades. If you're looking to place long-term trades, you would have wanted to do that back in November, right? Or at least a month to a month and a half ago. We talked about Nvidia breaking that long-term downtrend, right? That was the spot to grab Nvidia longs, right? So Nvidia longs paying in the portfolio, paying on the long term, but you're not looking to add long positions to Nvidia here, right? You're milking that beautiful profit that's come with the long term and the long swings, which has been nice, right? Nvidia has been paying up. I feel like everybody has that in their portfolio, has that in their long swings. That was one of the names that was mentioned when we broke that weekly downtrend. Like, okay, here's the time to buy. And since then, Nvidia has been on an absolute tear, so that's been great. But in terms of like how to play that now, you want to be playing it, if you're trading it, short term, right? You want to be short term swings on Nvidia and just let the longs, right, do their job, let the shares do their job. But you're not looking to go long, 2 months out, 3 months out on Nvidia right here, up near all-time highs when we're up 100%. Like, that is the opposite of when you're looking to go long-term Nvidia calls. We also have Snow, right? Snowflake, a ticker that's seen some action recently as well. And then Thursday, we've got the Royal Bank of Canada, Best Buy, another meme stock. We've got Dollar Tree, ticker DLTR, Ralph Lauren, and Costco, ticker Cost. So they actually have significant contributors, as Costco is very well positioned in the current inflationary environment, and the company also has a number of long-term competitive advantages. It should be that should enable continued market share gains. So just some outlook on these different companies here as we go into the week. We've got some earnings. I also believe that the market is closed this Friday. Is the market closed the Friday before Memorial Day weekend? I just want to double check, but I'm pretty sure it is. Is that May 26th? May 26th, Friday before Memorial Day. I'm pretty sure. Yep, that's May 26th. I'm gonna double check the calendar. Yeah. So we do have a short week as well. Typically, holiday weeks tend to be choppy. More often than not, historically, they end up being bullish. As we've seen, that does not guarantee that they are bullish, right? But historically, they end up finishing bullish on holiday weeks. So factor that into your expectations as well as we go into the week, holiday week, which means that a lot of these institutional traders, right, they could be on holiday already, right? They're already traveling to the Hamptons. They're going to be there for Memorial Day weekend, right? So you're not really expecting a whole lot of movement. We could get it. And then, of course, as well, historically speaking, going into a holiday weekend, you expect to finish green. That does not mean that we can't see whatever in between, right? That just means by Friday, we likely finish higher than where we were Monday. We could drop for 4 days and then run for the 5th day, right? So all of that is just part of your expectations. This is not me saying the market has to finish green this week, right? It's important to recognize these are bits of information. It's like me coloring in part of your coloring book. I don't know what the full picture will look like, but I can color in this piece, color in that piece, right? That is what this information does to you. It's not a prediction that this is what is to happen. This is just laying out, okay, here's what's happened in the past historically, and then this is how that can play out. And of course, always outlining, right, the bullish case for things and the bearish case for things. In terms of the bearish case for markets overall, we had a nice close above weekly resistance last week, which is good, right? Bullish for markets, but it is not the last, or it's not the only time. If you look at the chart on the weekly where we've closed above a weekly resistance, In terms of like the case for bearishness on markets, it's really focused on the monthly, which is where a lot of big money is looking. A lot of where they function is going to be on the weekly, on the monthly. So on the monthly, things still look dicey. On the weekly, they look a lot better. In terms of like, oh yeah, we broke that previous high, but if you notice over the course of the past few months, we've broken previous highs before and not like held to push very far. So when you see that, that kind of makes you think, okay, we could end up being in more of like a larger that I'm not aware of when I see something happening on the weekly, and you're like, oh, this, this is happening on the weekly. This is what should happen as a result. But when you see that start to not happen, which it has, right, where we pushed above weekly resistance before and fallen back beneath, it makes you think, okay, there might be something going on the monthly that I'm not aware of. So when we talk about that case, right, we pushed and we can still continue to push, but that 420, 421 area is key, right? Once we're over that 418, we can see that 420, 421. But once we hit that area again, we're back in that spot where it's like, all right, on the monthly, we still are vulnerable, right? We're still in a spot where we can fire down based off what we get on the monthly. So we really want to see like follow through with what we got on last week's weekly candle, because, in the weeks previous to this, we've had, firings happen on SPY on the weekly where we break out above previous weekly resistance, right? Just look at back on, what was that week? January, the end of January, 1/30/2023. We closed above the previous weekly high, right? So SPY at that point could fire, a weekly cup and handle, and it didn't. It didn't hold that next week, and we ended up selling down for the next month. So it's one of those things where, you still got to keep your eyes open. We're in a spot where, we're not fully out of the bear's den yet. It's just one of those things where once we pushed above, so you have to say, okay, we pushed above that level. Where are the levels we could push to now? But at this point, right, we had a high last week of what, 420.72. So this 420, 421 area, we got to keep our eyes open, right? So just remain dexterous. Don't commit yourself to one outcome over the other, because that is when you get clipped, right? That's when you get undercut. Throw a 7 in the chat. That makes sense, right? You have to make sure that you have the correct expectations and that you're not just like, okay, we're completely out of the woodwork, right? And we could see, of course, this debt ceiling news have a big effect, right? The thing is, what kind of effect will it have? We don't know whether or not it'll be a positive effect, or it could be a sell the news type of event where it's like, all right, this is finally determined, and then we end up selling instead. So we got to see. But in terms of corporate events, Microsoft has a 3-day developers conference. What else? Let me see. Anything else? Thermo Fisher Scientific. Looks like nothing too big. And sorry for any weird sounds again. I've got a cough drop in. We're fighting through, pushing through here as I make my way through whatever seasonal flu this is that I'm experiencing. But again, if I wake up tomorrow and I'm still feeling sick, probably gonna go ahead and just see the good old doctor. Normally I would have gone to the doctor quicker than this, but this just didn't seem like the type. Like if I have strep, and I've had strep in the past, I tend to get it because I still have tonsils. Normally it's very bad, very fast, but this hasn't been very bad. It's just been kind of annoying. But I'll continue to take my wellness pills, do all that good stuff. Now we're going to shift into our Monday specific news. So top news, what to believe. Fraudulent jobless claims in Massachusetts have cost what? Fraudulent jobless claims, have cast a shadow on the nature of economic data gathering and reporting, though there had been no shortage of skepticism beforehand in terms of statistics published by the federal government. I told you guys, I majored in economics. You can literally make statistics say anything you want. You can make statistics convey any idea that you want. All you do is slap a label on it, but you don't tell anybody the factors, the variables that you're using in order to create the economic model, right? If I tell you, hey, mom, technically I'm passing all of my classes, but you change the grading scale of the classes and then you spat out your grade, yeah, you're going to be passing all your classes, right? You literally change the scale by what you measured passing. It's the same thing with this data. So at this point, it's like, we don't know what we're getting. We just get fed information. They're like, hey, this is what it was. How do we really know? We don't, and I think that's why it's just so important to keep that in the back of your head, because you have to question everything. Make sure that you're always doing your own research, putting forth your own efforts, because people out here be scheming. People be scheming, and that's pretty much really right the grammatically incorrect way, but that's what it boils down to. People be scheming. So it says things have grown increasingly political in recent years, while a drop off in business participation and declining consumer respondents threaten to dampen the effectiveness of sample sizes. It's declining consumer respondents. Let's see here. It's a pretty big deal as many decisions are based on the numbers, like policy choices at the Federal Reserve to C suite strategies that form the foundation of the US economy. So, yes, right, it's very big. We see jobless numbers often directly affect how the market moves, right? So, if we can have faith in these jobless numbers, does that change how the stock market moves in relation to this data? Now, in terms of data dependent, the phrase is one that's often used at the central bank, though many are quick to flag subsequent forecasts made by the Fed, like Powell's infamous transitory call from 2021 that didn't quite pan out, right? Where he lied for over a year saying that this inflation wasn't entrenched, and it was. It's not only that many economic reports have to be sourced from survey and industry sources, but numerous figures are calculated based on past assumptions or derivatives of data. Agencies seek to adjust for imbalances by applying different weights to respondents or including third-party information, which some say makes things better. Reflect the general population. I think that was a typo. And others say erode trust in institutions. So this can impact key reports like non-farm payrolls, consumer confidence and sentiment, as well as retail sales. But we'll examine the popular consumer price index in the age of inflation. Now, CPI uses a, quote, basket of goods approach that aims to compare the costs of various consumer goods and services, with 80,000 items included in the report. Each month, data collectors from the Bureau of Labor Statistics call, visit, or check the website of thousands of retail stores, professional offices, and other establishments to assess nationwide price information. Still, several statistical adjustments are made, like accounting for the changes in the quality of goods, substitution, and other weightings. Now, grain of salt or a whole shaker. Earlier this year, the Labor Department put greater importance on the shelter component of CPI, which accounts for more than a third of the overall figure and has been in the spotlight over owner's equivalent rent. It also lessened its focus on things like used cars, which recently underwent its own methodology refresh. The survey last year incorporated third-party data to ease the burden on respondents, like information from the J.D. Power Information Network that measures changes in vehicles prices, further dividing investors on what should be factored into their decision making. So what they're telling us here is that a lot of the different data, right, like the shelter component of CPI now is weighted to take that into account more than previously, right? They are constantly changing the grading scale. Imagine you're in school and you're getting graded, but imagine that scale was constantly changing. At first from 80 to an 89 was a B. Then they made it 75 to 89 is a B, or 75 to 81 is a B, right? And 81 to 100 is an A. That's what they're doing with this data, right? They're constantly changing what the inputs are that go into it and how it's measured, and that can affect the outcome, right? Inflation might be worse than what we've seen, right? Jobless loss might be worse than what we've seen, but or jobs loss might be worse than what we've seen, but it all depends on how they're measuring this data, and they can skew it whichever way they want. But when we start to get to this point where we are undermining the trust that people have in the construction of this data and the validity of this data, it's a dangerous point, because it's like, what the heck do we use to gauge our decisions off of, right? We've got the Fed making decisions off of possibly fraudulent data. We've got private companies making decisions off of possibly fraudulent data. At this point, we've got what? JD Power that's directly impacting CPI data. JD Power is like, okay, if we want to choose this, if we want to drive this economic outcome, we can give them this report, right? Because they're too lazy in order to ease the burden on respondents. They don't want to go out and get responses from people. So they're going to take in our information, and we can kind of skew what we want to skew in order to get the results we want. So, it's just one of those things where it makes it tough to kind of trust some of the data that comes out. In terms of tech news, major security risk. So shares of Micron, ticker MU, are down 6% in pre-market trading after China banned the company's products from its, quote, critical infrastructure supply chain following a nearly 2-month review. While Micron is the biggest memory chip maker in the US, with more than a quarter of its sales going to China. Other semiconductor players will also be in focus amid an opening of a new chapter in the war over silicon. Last summer, we saw the passing of the CHIPS Act, which allowed the US government to pour billions of dollars into the semiconductor sector to, quote, lead the world in future industries and protect national security. So the Biden administration followed up on the measures with serious export controls to prevent American firms or any global company that uses their tech from selling chip designs, software, and equipment to Beijing. So that's big news, right? Because Micron, a semiconductor company, right? It was one that a lot of people have been watching because, okay, NVIDIA has been running, AMD has been running. Where can I get a piece of the semiconductor space that hasn't been as strong as the rest? And a lot of people, are looking at Micron after it finally broke above that 65 level. I had a friend who reached out, somebody who's in the Facebook group, right? Gone through the course in the Facebook group, reached out saying, hey, does Micron look ripe for a breakout? I'm like, hey, if it gets above 65, sure. But otherwise, we've been struggling with that 65 area for a while. And we dropped here on the news, but we're finding support right at that 65 area. So we'll see, right? Micron can drop and bounce back to fill that gap. But overall, definitely impactful news, right? As we see this semiconductor chip war continue to heat up. But Micron definitely on watch as we're falling. We fell back to that 65 area. We dropped immediately down to like 63.54, but we've like made our way back above that 65. So Micron is on like gap fill watch here, as we can see it, kind of possibly dip beneath that 65 at open. But if it holds, we could put and gets back above, right? We could push to a retest at pre-market high of 67.32 and even clear the gap all the way back up to that 68 area where it was at close of last week. So Micron, ticker MU, something that we've got eyes on at open. In terms of economic news, let me drink some water real quick. All right, y'all, we're pushing through. Economic news back and forth. A weekend full of drama saw both sides of the aisle continue to point fingers over the debt ceiling. This is America. Before things took a positive turn Sunday night as Air Force One returned from the G7 summit in Japan. Quote, it went well, President Biden declared after speaking with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, while the latter described the call as productive. Regarding whether the 14th Amendment would be an effective solution to the crisis, Biden confirmed his belief that, quote, we have the authority to invoke the article, though a series of legal challenges could still mean the U.S. would default on its debt. Meanwhile, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen reiterated her warning that a default could take place as early as June 1st, and that hard choices would need to be made about which, quote, bills will go unpaid if the debt limit was not raised. Now, in terms of outlook, corporate bankruptcies, distress in corporate finance is increasing. In the near zero interest rate environment during the pandemic and through February 2022, corporations could take on more debt and extend existing debt without adding much to their debt burdens. In addition, government support helped keep many U.S. businesses afloat during pandemic lockdowns. That helped keep corporate and personal bankruptcy filings low. But since then, fiscal relief has disappeared, with the Federal Reserve pushing up its policy rate by 500 basis points in 15 months. Financing costs have jumped, while month-to-month movement proves choppier. Here are the sectors investors are watching and the knock-on effects they can have on the economy. So that just leads to, another article. But overall, right, seeing a lot more corporate bankruptcies. What else is new? Not every company will survive. Not every company you buy the dip on. Not every company will recover. Right? That's how it is. It's natural selection. There are going to be a lot of companies that die off. And it's not because they were a bad company. It's just timing, right? You could have the most amazing idea, but if the timing doesn't work out, it doesn't end up being a great opportunity, right? Timing is what makes great opportunities, right? You can have a great idea, but if not executed at the right time, it can die. So I think that's very important to keep in mind. And whether you're, an employee, an employer, an entrepreneur, whatever, right? A C-suite executive, a trader, all of that comes into play, right? That mindset of timing being important. If you have that mindset in life, you'll be a lot better off, right? Than just by people who are straight buy and hold, right? They're like, oh, I'm just going to buy and hold and be fine. Like at the end of the day, when you do something matters, right? It matters whether you're investing, whether you're trading, or whether you're just living life. When you take an action matters. And if you don't take it at the right time, there can be consequences. So in terms of today's markets, got a mixed bag. Um, S&P, I'm just gonna go because like I barely have a voice. I'm just gonna go America. The Dow down 0.1, S&P down 0.1, Nasdaq down 0.2, Bitcoin down another 0.4% to 26,799. In terms of today's economic calendar, we've got Bullard speaking at 8:30 a.m., so he's probably on now. We've got Barkin at 10:50, and then Daly at 11. So a few members of the Fed that are speaking here this morning. So we see some chop because of that, some volatility because of that. What else is happening? We got our rapid fire bullet point rundown to close us out. So earnings season, executives call out rising retail theft hitting profits. Shrinkage has been insane, right? Walmart, Target, all these stores are just dealing with rampant theft. ExxonMobil, ticker XOM, joins the lithium race with drilling rights in Arkansas. That could be huge. If ExxonMobil moves into the lithium space with how important lithium is for batteries and semiconductors, like that could be absolutely huge for ExxonMobil for bringing in a new branch of revenue. So I like that. I like that for them a lot. Risk of summer blackouts is rising across most of the U.S. Large cap restaurant stocks may be more appetizing than they appear. American Airlines, ticker AAL, and JetBlue, ticker JBLU, alliance blocked on antitrust grounds. So another M&A deal in the dust, right? Along with tons of others that have happened during this administration. Billions of dollars at stake as FDA shortcut allows half-proven drugs. You don't like to hear that. Novo Nordisk, ticker NVO, Ozempic sales expected to reach $17 billion in 2029. Confusing electric vehicle tax rules may be cutting into demand. And then Ford, ticker F, unveils supply chain agreements to bolster EV efforts. And then will ChatGPT prevent a recession, or is AI a baby bubble? I don't know why it would prevent a recession. That does not make much sense to me, but who the heck knows? Maybe it could. I feel like when you have the founder of something, a product or a service, talking about the need for universal basic income in the wake of their discovery, it's probably something that might not be as good for the average person, right? So we'll see. But right now, everybody's going to weigh, are we in the bubble? Are we in this? Are we in that? I'm just going to use the tools as much as I can use them to make money and call it a day. It's really all that we can do, right? But that will wrap us up here. Having charging stations at the gas station. Yeah, so I mean, the thing is with ExxonMobil is that the charging stations that are put at gas stations aren't through them. They might make money from the companies that put those charging stations there. Maybe they like have a cut of the revenue, but overall that's not a direct correlation, right? When we talk about them having the right to drill the lithium, a lot more goes into a charging station, developing your own charging stations than just having the lithium. But that might be something that is on their radar, right? But I think there's just even beyond charging stations at gas stations, there's so much that could, bleed into. But that is one of them, right? That is one of them. Maybe they're like, hey, forget Tesla. We're gonna have our own charging stations. Tesla again, though they've put in the effort, they've put in the time. So who knows? We'll see. But that definitely just opens up a whole host of possibilities for ExxonMobil. From battery making to all these different things. So they might be able to provide their own batteries for battery swapping, because that's one way that they like to charge electric vehicles, by swapping batteries. So you take out your dead battery, you put in a charged battery, and you just do that at all these different stations. So we'll see, but that's pretty cool news. And I'm pretty sure it'll be very valuable for them, right? Very good for their bottom line. But overall, we made it through. Pat on the back to myself because, man, as you guys can hear, the voice isn't in the best of shape. I'm not going to go perform at the opera, but I am happy to have been here to get through this, right, to push, to work, to execute. And that just makes me pumped for the rest of today, right? I'll continue to push, continue to execute, continue to rise above the odds, right, and do what we need to do. So I'm happy to have been here. If you guys get any value, as always, share this with anybody who could need it. Show love to the account, right? We got free content still coming out each and every day. I do that for you guys, right, for this community. I would not rather do it for anyone else, right? So happy to have cultivated this and to continue to push, continue to grow. Thank you, Coco. I appreciate that. Not easy, but you guys make it worth it, right? Together, we can all push through. So I appreciate you being here, investing your time. You're 1% better because of it. So you can cross that off the to-do list. You're already starting Monday on the right foot, right? But have a great rest of the day. See you back here tomorrow morning for our next pre-market prep session. Have a good one, everybody.